Hey everyone, this is a quick video to show you how to get started with the AWS Amplify and contribute to the Amplify JavaScript project. Recently, the Amplify team introduced the Contributor Bash, which is an open invite to call all the open source developers to learn more about the Amplify ecosystem and make constructive and helpful pull requests. More importantly, it is also a booster for your resume and portfolio. So if you look at the prerequisites on the Contribute to Amplify site, all you need is a GitHub account and an IDE such as VS Code. I do have my VS Code set up here. And you need to set up the Amplify JS development environment. So if you actually open this link here, it takes you to the contributing guide for Amplify and asks you to set up the local environment. So the first step is to go ahead and fork the Amplify JS repo. So if you go to the Amplify JS repo, click on fork, I go ahead and fork this to my own account, and it'll take just a few seconds while this is forking in there, but once it's forked, you can clone it to your local machine. So what I'm going to do is copy the clone URL and go ahead and do a git clone. It should go ahead and create a directory called Amplify.js and clone the entire repo in there. Once this is done, it asks you to run a few commands on yarn. I will be running these commands as I step through the video so that you have an understanding as to what happens in the backend. Basically, Amplify.js is a monorepo that's built with Yarn and Lerna. Lerna is a tool for managing JavaScript projects. It optimizes the workflow around multi-package repositories, and Yarn is a package manager. So if this is complete, then you can cd into the directory and go ahead and run yarn, which takes about 245 seconds. So I'm going to be pausing the video while it runs and builds the environment. So the next command that we'll have to run is yarn bootstrap. We'll go ahead and run that. This command took about 100 seconds, so slightly lesser than the first one. And then let's go ahead and run yarn build. This command took some time. It was about 382 seconds. Once you have set up this development environment for local development, you can go ahead and open up the Amplify JS repo on the Explorer. So if you take a look at how Amplify JS is architected, it is a single mono repo with different packages. What we are trying to do right now is to go ahead and create a new branch. So if you go back to the contributor bash and then take a look at the next steps, um, you can use the CLI or the command line to check the status of Git. So if you go back and then type in Git status, it should say that your branch is up to date. Now you can create a new branch from the CLI, or you can use Visual Studio to create a new branch. I prefer doing them from Visual Studio, but it is completely up to the preference of the user. So what you can do is go ahead and click here and then say create a new branch. Um, there is naming convention that's required for the branch. So the group token is to indicate the category that you're working on. For example, if you're working on auth or a data store or predictions, you need to specify that. The short token can be the feature or the bug, and the branch name should be representative of the feature or the fix. So let's go ahead and do that. In this particular case, I'm just trying to show how we can add a new console message. Um, so I'm going to say I'm going to modify the core package or the core category. And within that, I'm going to add a new feature. And I'm going to say I'm going to add extra debug. line. So once I do this, I do have the branch that's been switched. So I'll go back and then open the core category. Each category has its own source folder and package.json folder. So I'll go into the source folder. I'm going to go into logger. If you don't know what the logger does for AWS Amplify, feel free to go to the documentation side. But just to quickly show you, if you can Google for AWS Amplify logger, you should be able to see the utilities that's been created for Amplify and how to use the utilities and working with the API. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do is add a new line. So in the console logger.ts file, I'm just going to say this is um, this is the start for application debugging, and I'm going to save this file. So once I save this file, it detects these changes. So I will go ahead and add a commit message. I'm going to say adding a new line for logging. Once I do that, the changes are committed, and then I can go ahead and publish the branch. So even before I do the publish of the branch, let me go back to the contributing guide and then see what's the best way to make contributions. Now, I've made the changes to the logging file, but I have not tested those changes. And a good step is to go ahead and build the packages again and test the changes that you have made. So the build step also provides you building on the specific scope. In this particular example, they've used the scope for AWS Amplify Auth. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and test it for the core category. So instead of building it all the way, let's just build it for the ones where we made the changes. And once that's done, what you can do is run a test. And again, you can scope it down to the category that you're working on. So let's go ahead and run this for core. Ensure that all the tests pass. The best part is you should already see your new changes that's been made to the core category while the command was being run for test. All right, so let's go back to the contributing guide and then see how we can test this. The best possible way is to test it in a local sample app. And what we'll do is go ahead and link this. And again, do not forget to change the category that you're working on. The examples give you the auth category, but in this particular case, I'm going to create a yarn link, and now it says that I can go ahead and create or use the yarn link for Amplify Core. I have done this earlier, so I'll have to unlink it. So let me just unlink and then add the link again. And now it says you can now run yarn link core in your project. So I do have a create React app project that I've created called test logger. So I'm going to add the link here, and I can go ahead and install other packages that is needed for the app. So in this particular case, I just need AWS Amplify. And let's go ahead and initialize Amplify inside the test create React app. We'll just give it a second while this initializes and go ahead and input all the parameters that's needed to create this Amplify app. Ask for the name for the project, and then initialize the project with the above configuration. You can choose your AWS profile that you would like to use. And once you choose the profile, it's going to create a backend environment and initialize the project on your AWS account. And once that's done, all I have to do is go back and modify my app.js file. So we'll go ahead and import the AWS exports from dot. Okay, that's fine. AWS exports, and we'll also need to import Amplify and Logger from AWS Amplify. And once we do that, we need to configure the exports file. So we say configure AWS exports. And in order to use the logger, you can have a look at the documentation. So let's go back. So we already imported the logger. Um, let's see what happens if we go ahead and use the logger this way. So what it does is it instantiates the logger, and it goes ahead and prints out all the different levels on logger. Now we do have the rest of the app as is. So let's go ahead and save this and run this locally and see what happens. And it appears that I was importing the logger from AWS Amplify, which was installed as an NPM dependency, and because of which the logger wasn't taking the local link. So in order to force that, what I did is I went ahead and imported logger from AWS Amplify /core. It's similar to the one that we saw in the contributing guide. So if you scroll up, then you should see the yarn link at AWS Amplify /auth. In our case, we put it for core. And let's go ahead and look at the application again. So if you see the application is still running, let me just go ahead and do a refresh. And there you see that the console logger.ts has a new line, and it says this is the start for application debugging. So we have successfully tested our changes in the local sample app. Now, all that we have to do is push our changes from Amplify JS, publish the branch. So once the branch has been published, go to GitHub and have a look at the Amplify JS, and you should see that there is a recent push, and you can compare and create a pull request. And it says this is the headline, so go ahead and provide all the descriptions. So go ahead and talk about the changes that you've made. Please look at the pull request guidelines just to ensure that you're making valid and constructive pull requests, and also save time for um, the engineers working on the repo. Go ahead and add the test results that you've seen in terms of whether the test passed and any relevant information, and then just say create pull requests. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to be adding a new extra line for application debugging, which honestly doesn't make sense, but I just wanted to showcase how you can test the changes on a local app. One of the cool little things that I've tried to do is to modify the auth category to see, if there's a different error message that comes up, if there is changes that's needed on a specific pop-up or a hover. Feel free to go ahead and do that and submit your PRs so that our team can have a look at it and then incorporate the necessary changes in order to ensure that we have a clean and working code with new features and fixing all the issues that we have seen so far. Thanks for watching this. This is the Amplify contribution to the JavaScript library in under 15 minutes. Signing off.